I am Mr. Gigabytes, and I am on a mission to find the last of the RadioShack stores. Many people think that when RadioShack closed their corporate stores in February of 2015, the company basically disappeared. What people don't know is that there were actually two different types of stores, corporate and franchise. The corporate stores were the ones most people are familiar with, in large cities and malls. The franchise stores, now called authorized dealers, are owned by independent operators and relegated to small towns of less than 10,000 people that were otherwise not feasible for a corporate store. While many of these dealer locations have since folded, those that remain are really the torchbearers of the RadioShack store experience. By one estimate, there are over 400 independent RadioShack authorized dealers still in operation across the country. 69 of those dealers are places like HobbyTown. They contain something called a RadioShack Express, which contains a selection of RadioShack product to sell in store. As anyone in electronics repair will tell you, having a local parts dealer can make or break a project. As there is a HobbyTown only a mile away from my shop, I'm going down to talk to the owner about his store and the RadioShack Express inside it.
I'm Ryan with HobbyTown, the owner here in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I have the RadioShack Express. Started it in July of 2018. We started the franchise of May of 2015.
So you started the HobbyTown in May of 2015?
Correct, yep. May of 2015 we started the HobbyTown. We moved it here to 26th and Western at the Park Ridge Galleria. Didn't have RadioShack right away, but the RadioShack approached us as a whole HobbyTown and offered to bring their product into our stores, and we have 69 locations with the HobbyTown Express in the stores out of 108 of us, so pretty good percentage out there where you can find your RadioShack equipment. RadioShack has a lot of component stuff, the switches, resistors, fuses, some soldering, a lot of soldering stuff, got a little bit of radio stuff, LEDs, connectors.
So I see you've got you've got some radios and some larger things other than besides component level items. Is that something? Is that been popular for you, or is?
I get a lot of requests for it, but I find myself maybe not having exactly what the customers have been used to over the years that RadioShack was around. Their product list is not quite as large as it used to be, but they are making strides to get that stuff back in, so that's great.
When people come in, say for the first time, and they see your wall of parts and things like that, obviously they're gravitate more toward your main business, because that's the thing that brings them in the door. But when they see the wall of parts, how are people's reactions? Are they generally positive and
very positive,
surprised
and thrilling, and glad to see that there's somebody still carrying that stuff and bringing it back. So the great feedback of it. So
once upon a time, we had 3 RadioShacks in Sioux Falls. One on Western Avenue, one in the Empire Mall, and one on East 10th Street. This was the East 10th Street location. While this is the original building, it has been remodeled, and a Nest Tax has been here since this RadioShack location moved further east to Arrowhead Parkway, which is now a GameStop, a few years before the corporate stores closed. I worked in that building at RadioShack after high school for nearly 2 years. I sold Tandy and AST computers, early cell phones, and more batteries than I can count. I even had a RadioShack charge card and was a member of the Battery a Month Club. Our next destination is Rock Valley, Iowa, home of Van Manen's Radio Shack. This is their largest of 3 stores and Van Manen's corporate headquarters.
So, my name is Corey Van Manen, and I'm one of the owners of the Radio Shack store here in Rock Valley, Iowa. My dad started our store in 1962, basically selling GE appliances, GE televisions, and then Zenith televisions, stereos, and then also small home appliances. And then in 1977, we became a Radio Shack dealer, and here in Rock Valley. Then in 1987, we began a Radio Shack store in Sheldon, Iowa. And in 1992, we started a Radio Shack store in Orange City, Iowa. And so we've been at this location in Rock Valley, 1225 Valley Drive. We've been here about 16 years. We spent many years downtown in smaller buildings, and so we moved out here. So we're currently selling. We're a Radio Shack dealer. We sell televisions. We sell appliances, GE appliances, and Speed Queen laundry. We have a computer department where we do computers for businesses and homes. We have a photo department that does photo printing as well as a studio. And so that's kind of our, we've been a family-owned business. Right now my brother and I own it, and then I have another brother that actually works in our computer department.
So diversification has kind of been your key to success, really.
When we started out as TV and appliance, basically, and then we were doing some consumer electronics that we would buy from a variety of different distributors, but you had a variety of brands, and so we started looking at Radio Shack, which would offer us a unified brand of a whole variety of electronics. And so initially when we started, I think we had maybe a 20 by 20 foot area in our store set aside for Radio Shack. And over the years that grew, and in fact, when Radio Shack introduced their first computer in 1978, my brother Galen went into computers, and we actually developed our computer business based on starting with the Radio Shack, TRS-80s, and so forth. So yeah, basically we've kind of had to expand a little bit because we're in a small town of about 3,200, and so you have to do a variety of things to help everybody out.
How much comes from Radio Shack, and how much is other?
So I would say that's sort of changed over the years.
Mm-hmm.
So initially, of course, pretty much everything was other stuff. But then as Radio Shack, the Radio Shack brand grew, and we did a lot of Radio Shack computers. It was probably 80% of our revenue was from Radio Shack product. Well, then in 2015, Radio Shack, the legacy company, went into bankruptcy, which at that point for a short period of time, we lost availability of any Radio Shack product. And of course we had to look to other distributors to fill those needs. And then Radio Shack did come back in not quite the same fashion as they were originally. Right now I would say Radio Shack probably accounts for maybe 15 or 20% of our revenues. And part of that is availability of product. Right now is very difficult for Radio Shack. Like a lot of the products come from overseas. And so, and then plus the bankruptcy affected their business model as well. So yeah, we've had to source some of our products from other distributors when Radio Shack has been out of product.
So what has been the biggest challenge in keeping Radio Shack items in stock? It sounds like you kind of alluded to that.
Right. Yeah, it's and part of that has, before Radio Shack went into bankruptcy, a huge part of their business was wireless cell phone. They were sold cell phones, and of course that market changed because pretty soon the phones were no longer free. You had to buy the phone, and of course the cell phone companies, since almost everybody had a cell phone, they weren't paying big commissions to get new customers because they didn't have to, and which affected Radio Shack revenue. Yeah, as a Radio Shack dealer, with the availability has been kind of a challenge because we've had to go to other distributors, which then we kind of get back to the point where I've got the items, but it's a variety of different brands. So you lose a little bit of the unified brand model. Yeah, in a lot of cases you don't have any choice because it's just, currently the RadioShack company they've got product available, but it's a limited amount at this point. The RadioShack brand, it's interesting because a lot of people think RadioShack's gone, and they think RadioShack's been gone since the initial bankruptcy. And so and most of the corporate stores, which are in the large metropolitan areas, are closed, but there's still a fair number of dealers that are still RadioShack dealers, which is what we are. And we believe that there's a definite value to the RadioShack brand. I have people come in every week. It's like, oh, I can't believe there's a RadioShack still here. And in fact, this past Saturday I was working in my Orange City store, and I had a couple come in, and he was from North Carolina. He says, like, I'm walking down memory lane here. He says, when I was a kid, I would go to RadioShack. I'd buy fuses. I'd buy resistors. He said I would buy all kinds of these electronic things, and he says we don't have them around. And he said this is just incredible that I can walk through here. It's like reliving my youth.
If you were in charge of RadioShack today, how would you run the show?
If I was running RadioShack right now, I would concentrate on providing the essentials that RadioShack is known for. I think some of the times RadioShack got into trouble is they went into areas that they were not known for, and just were not able to do a good job selling certain products. And I think it's important for most companies to find what their core competency is, and then to do that to the best of your ability. So if I was running RadioShack, I would make sure I have the RadioShack stuff that people are normally looking for, and make sure I'm able to provide that kind of product.
This next RadioShack is in Orange City, Iowa, home of the Tulip Festival, and is also owned by Van Manen. This is probably my favorite because it reminds me a lot of the RadioShack I worked at, as the layout and color scheme is so similar.
I'm Marcia Korselman. I live in Orange City here, and I have been with RadioShack Van Manen's for 15 years, and I'm a sales associate.
So what do you like most about being working in the RadioShack in Orange City?
Being able to help older customers with some of their challenges with technology, cell phones, different problems with like printers or wireless thermometers, or helping them with batteries, phones.
What are some of the challenges of running a RadioShack in 2021?
Right now it's product supply, trying to get products in. Some of the things the product are becoming a little bit more available, like ink and different things like that is starting, but a lot of product availability and being able to figure out what you need when you can't get what you want.
If you were running RadioShack today, what would you do in terms of how you would run the corporate?
They need to get product in, and we need to get some of the newer products in. Yes, we have still a lot of people that do a lot of things with the parts stores, and we still sell quite a bit of stuff out of the parts store. Probably every day you sell something out of there, but keeping some of that stuff stocked again, I think that's part of the problem. We need to get stuff stocked so we have something to sell.
Our final stop on our tour is Sheldon, Iowa. This is the third location owned by Van Manen, and, like their other locations, is very much like taking a step back in time.
My name is Vicki Cooley. I've worked here for 25 years for Van Manen's,
So what do you like best about working in RadioShack in Sheldon, Iowa?
I enjoy the small town. I enjoy helping customers, whether it's young or old, doing a wide variety of categories, from phones to batteries.
What have been some of the challenges you've had in the store, running the store?
Getting inventory from RadioShack and them discontinuing some of our favorite categories, so we have to look for other vendors.
What are some of the categories that they've discontinued?
Just different adapters and cables. They've gotten rid of some of our popular ones. Home telephones, we found other vendors for. CVs and scanners, we've had to go to other vendors.
If you were running RadioShack corporate today, what's the one thing that you would change?
Probably talk to the dealers and find out what they're looking for and try to bring a little wider range of inventory in.
The single most common challenge I heard about being a RadioShack dealer in the 2020s is support from the supply chain. Even pre-pandemic, this was a regular conversation I had with managers and employees. While supply chain issues have certainly gotten worse over the last few years, one cannot discount the apparent difficulty that dealers are seeing when trying to restock their shelves with both components and larger items.
They need to get product in. And we need to get some of the newer products in. I think that's part of the problem. We need to get stuff stocked so we have something to sell.
Getting inventory from RadioShack.
Their product list is not quite as large as it used to be, but they are making strides to get that stuff back in, so that's great.
So yeah, as a RadioShack dealer, with the availability has been kind of a challenge because we've had to go to other distributors.
Even 25 years ago, the dealers were treated like the stepchildren of the RadioShack family. While they are not the creation of RadioShack itself, the reality is that the parent company made a commitment to these dealers that seems to me not to be entirely fulfilled. Certainly, one can understand that restocking brick and mortar stores is a complicated and not overly profitable venture. However, with these stores being the representatives of RadioShack on the ground, I think that RadioShack is missing several opportunities in this department to capitalize on their nostalgia by not giving these stores the love and support they truly deserve. So there it is, 4 RadioShack stores, all within a short drive of my hometown. Today, anyone, anywhere can open up a RadioShack dealer by contacting RadioShack through their website. I encourage you to go to the RadioShack store finder at radioshack.com to find a location near you. But don't just go for a visit and a photo op. Go there and buy something, and keep coming back to buy something. 2021 marks the 100th anniversary of RadioShack's founding, and these authorized dealers are the gatekeepers of the true RadioShack experience. If RadioShack is to continue into its second century, it is enthusiasts like you and I shopping at dealers like these that will ultimately determine that.